We're having with us the representative of the Serbian section of the Anti-Imperialist Front to talk about the current situation in the Republic. Can you please tell us what is happening in Kosovo right now?
What we're seeing now is not the first and definitely not the last time that tension will rise in Kosovo. I mean, tensions that tend to escalate to violence happens every now and then. This time, the cause was the arrest of a Serbian policeman, Dejan Pantic, followed by the barricades erected by the Serbian community up in north. And as the tensions were increasing, the Serbian government requested permission to enter Kosovo with its own security forces to defend its own people. I mean, the UN resolution 1244 related to Kosovo status actually allows us that. So we are used to these kind of news that occur every now and then, although sometimes media try to blow it out of proportion.
Okay, so I imagine that we would need a bit more of a historical and geopolitical context relating to the Kosovo issue. So, what do you think are the interests of the imperialists in the Balkans region?
Recent tensions and also previous events in Kosovo cannot be understood only on the basis of the relations between the local actors and in isolations from the historical context that brought this situation about. The existing problems of the remaining Serbian population and the political ambitions of the imperialist-backed Albanian elites of Kosovo manifest themselves as symptoms of more profound and far-reaching issues that go beyond whatever legal dispute occurs now and then. Today, I don't know, it is about car license plates. Tomorrow, it's gonna be some other excuse. So I think in order to understand the situation, we need a wider geopolitical and longer historical context. I think once we clarify that, we'll see that the current events are much more related to the politics of domination and dependence rather than the short term legal and political objectives of the local actors. You might think that the actors of this scenario are obvious, but actually it's not Serbia and Kosovo Albanians. I mean, the main actors are the collective West, also known as the imperialists, particularly the USA and the European Union. They basically compete using the age-old strategy of divide and conquer. I mean, for that reason, we can see this conflict through the prism of intra-imperialist competition. They're they're focused on three main objectives: geopolitical, economic, and military. After the end of Cold War, the USA redefined the role of NATO and became something like a global policeman as a goal to secure its interests and especially as a means of political and military influence in Europe. At that time, Balkan area and Yugoslavia was defined as a zone of special interest, given that it represents a sort of a gateway to the issues of intense Western concern, manner, for example, Arab-Israeli conflict, Iraq-Iran, access to Afghanistan and Caspian Sea, etc. While in the geopolitical sense, control over the region means control over the communication and supply routes between those strategic areas in Europe. I mean, in military sense, it means the protection of Western investments and breaking up on the Russian monopoly over oil and gas transport. Economically, it means making sure that the neoliberal order remains intact and unchallenged, so that the extra profits can be secured and extracted. So in the mid 90s, a plan was made to develop what was called pan-European corridors, meaning routes that would connect Europe to the open quote areas of intense Western concern, close quote, the bulk of which would pass through the Balkans. At about the same time, the war in Bosnia was still on, and a major discussion was on the table. European proposal was to place peace forces under the mandate of UN, while the US proposal was to place NATO as means of guarantee of peace. So as we're all aware now, the peace deal was brokered by the USA as a result of NATO intervention. It is also worth mentioning that at the time when the USA was redefining the role of NATO, France and Germany proposed the creation of a European army forces called Eurocorps. That was a move that USA definitely saw as a threat to its interests, so it managed to stop it by integrating Eurocorps under NATO command. So right after the war in Bosnia was finished, the escalation of the Serbian-Albanian conflict in Kosovo gained traction. According to some Western politicians, the objective of the Kosovo conflict was to design a solution that would make the southern Serbian province independent from Serbia, but at the same time would keep Serbia dependent on Kosovo. That was the policy that continued to this day in one or another form. The turning point definitely in Kosovo conflict started with the NATO intervention and the 78 day bombing of Yugoslavia. The imperialists then started heavily pushing the propaganda that there was an ethnic cleansing of Albanians uh, ongoing on Kosovo, using it sort of as an excuse for what they call a humanitarian war. The real cause, the real cause was actually rejection of the Yugoslav delegation to accept the Rambouillet Accords, which was de facto an occupation accord that would allow NATO troops to go around Yugoslavia and do whatever they wanted to without being subjected to legal punishment if necessary. Also, it would give Kosovo wider autonomy, which Yugoslav delegation actually accepted. The problem was that the military provisions that were added pretty much at the last moment would definitely allow NATO free access to Serbia's territory and diplomatic immunity from local laws. In other words, the accord stipulated the outright occupation of Yugoslavia. That detail was rejected and led directly to the military campaign, and as a result of all of that, we have one of the biggest military bases in Europe called Camp Bondsteel. If you compare the map of pan-European corridors with the location of Camp Bondsteel, you'll see that it is a situation where multiple corridors meet, giving it the perfect location for control of the region and guaranteeing the US interest as per the definition of NATO. In the context of what I've mentioned, then Yugoslavia and now Serbia represent an obstacle to the control over the region for both USA and EU. While in the past it also posed resistance to the neoliberal policies imposed by the West. Currently, Serbia is the only country in the region that actually continues to maintain some sort of policy of neutrality, meaning like a friendly relationship with Russia, China, and as of recently, Iran. The latest development in Kosovo is only a push in the direction of securing imperialists' interests in the region, and the Albanians in Kosovo are means to achieve that. According to the European proposal to normalize the relationship with Kosovo, Serbia is expected to de facto recognize its sovereignty, which would seal imperialist presence and control over the region. However, what is not provided is a guarantee of safety for the remaining Serbian population, nor does it provide a long-term solution to the problem. Rather, it only freezes the conflict for the time being, leaving it open to reactivation in case of a geopolitical need. It's also worth mentioning that the original peace in Kosovo was established under the terms of UN Resolution 1244, which requires the withdrawal of Serbian police and military forces while allowing for their return in the future, the establishment of a legal entity to represent the interests of a Serbian community, and forbids the establishment of Albanian military structures. In the past 2 decades, not only the Albanian party has rejected the constitution of Serbian autonomy, but with the permission of the Western military present, it has constituted a de facto military-like structure under the guise of a special police. The representatives of the imperialist countries have ignored the resolution they facilitated and they were meant to guarantee. In other words, any imperialist brokered peace just means the preservation of conflict. The violence in Kosovo is just a reflection of it.
You mentioned the lack of implementation of Serbian communities in Kosovo. So, how would you describe the situation for Kosovar Serbs that remain in the region, so in the province of Kosovo throughout these years? So, what do you expect in future to happen?
When the NATO occupation forces arrived, they allowed pretty much the ethnic cleansing of the non-Albanian population, including Roma, Ashkalis, Egyptians, not just the Serbs. So what was left of Serbian population has been pretty much reduced to a status of second-class citizens whose rights are systematically suppressed and who are exposed to discrimination and abuse pretty much on a regular basis. Just for the sake of comparison, the ethnic composition of Serbia in terms of percentages has remained largely unchanged over the course of the past 3 decades. But when it comes to the future, I would say that the geopolitical situation is slowly shifting in our favor. Slowly but surely. I mean, with the US hegemony in decay and the rise of East, it is not an illusion to think that someday we will return to Kosovo, using force if needed. And it's also worth mentioning, since the majority of our people never gave up on the fact that Kosovo was, is, and will be Serbian, we can say that the imperialists have failed to ideologically poison our people, which is good. We will never legitimize imperialist aggression by recognizing the puppet state, whose main purpose was to undermine socialism in the Balkans. Kosovo is Serbia,